of the experts think the Chargers are going trenches in round 1 of the 2026 NFL draft, but the trenches better be offensive line if the right person is there.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into a bonus episode of the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers for 10 seasons, and it's our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day as part of the #1 sports podcast network. And David, today we're going to be talking about offensive line or defensive line for the Chargers in round 1.
That's right. Which one do we think the Chargers should go with? And I think, honestly, after pouring into it, it's pretty clear what the choice is.
Yeah, and I think the argument for both can be strong, and I think it's just about kind of where you want to add those resources into this team. But I think when you look at who the experts are taking, and in the last Chargers team, mock draft tracker, every expert had the Chargers either taking a defensive tackle or an interior offensive lineman. And some of those, and even a majority of those, happening after the Chargers have already re-signed Teair Tart to the defensive line. So that being factored in, it's still going to be trenches for the Chargers according to pretty much everyone right now, which is already somewhat of a dangerous place to be. But I do think that when you're looking at it and you want to talk about, hey, where should you go? If the right person is there, like if you think there's an offensive lineman that can take that need off of your plate for the next 5 seasons, I think you run with it and you don't look back.
Yeah, no question about it. I think for me, especially when you look at the last 5 years of drafts for the Chargers and where they've had success getting offensive linemen, it is pretty universally in the first round almost exclusively. I mean, you look back, obviously going back to 2021, Rashawn Slater, home run, slam dunk, home run pick. 2022, first round, Zion Johnson. Pretty serviceable average NFL guard, a guy that's at least been there, has been very durable, and he's been a solid football player. Obviously, 2024, you got the other fantastic superstar tackle in Joe Alt. But if you're looking for depth, if you're looking for quality in the middle to late rounds, they really haven't had any kind of success story to speak of in the last 5 years of guys that they've drafted in the middle to late rounds. None of these guys, if it's Branson Taylor most recently, Jordan McFadden, or all the way back to Brendan Hymas, none of these guys really made any kind of impact on the Chargers at any point.
Yeah, I mean, there's only one. It's Jamari Sawyer, and that's
it.
Like so, and that obviously there were some medical concerns there that made him drop down. Like there were some other parts of that added to that made it not so quite black and white, because he was never a 6th round player, right? I mean, and you knew that. You were a Jamari Sawyer guy, that first year. But I think also it's important to kind of look at it like this. I mean, the guys who are all playing at the top of the league for the most part, they're drafted early, and for both of these positions. But like for the Chargers, when you have the season that you just had, where once again it's being unraveled by your offensive line, if the right person is there, you have to take it. I think the hard thing is like there might not be someone there at that position that's worth taking, because you still have to take someone that, at pick 22, maybe you don't have a 1st round grade on him, but you better have a very high grade on him. And like, we'll talk about this more. I still think the ideal situation for the Chargers is to trade back. And I think the other part of it is like the Chargers used a 1st round pick on Zion Johnson, right? And that was just whatever. Like he never really lived up to that 1st round status. When you take an offensive lineman in the 1st round, specifically an interior offensive lineman, David, a player that, doesn't have the positional value of some other players, you better make sure you're right if you're going to do it. But if that guy is there, it's definitely worth it.
Oh, absolutely. I think when you're talking about the interior of the offensive line, obviously it's not a glamorous position. It's not tackle where these guys are getting paid an obscene amount of money. And they're the primary pass protectors. I mean, the guards are in the trenches doing the dirty work, trying to run people over. Obviously, it's a little bit of a different position, and obviously it's scouted a little bit differently. But the Chargers need to inject a lot of talent into the interior of their offensive line. That is crystal clear. I mean, especially when you consider the Chargers have a lot of guys that are going to be free agents going into this year. I mean, we're talking Trey Pipkins, Zion Johnson, Trevor Penning, Jamari Sawyer, Andre James. So the Chargers need to add more bodies at the top end of their offensive line and into the depth as well. They just need to inject talent up and down that offensive line because the last couple of years it hasn't been good enough, and they need to put in the resources to affect immediate and sustained change on their offensive line.
Well, also, making sure you're not reaching for someone and taking someone that doesn't deserve that spot. And things get a little bit trickier when you're picking in the 20s. And even someone like Penn State guard Vega Ioane, that's not necessarily a guarantee, right? Like some people have him as a top 15, 16 prospect. Some people have him as a second-round prospect. So, you want to also make sure that you have someone that's going to work out, especially because of the defensive lines that are out there and some of the monsters you're going to have to play against. And when you look at the last couple Super Bowl winners, they both had monsters on that defensive line. So maybe that's an argument to go defensive tackle in round one and finally give Mike Elston something to work with. We're going to get into that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on, you need the right hire, and this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit where you're looking for: skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. You're actually doing something to make sure that happens, and here's a stat that says it all. And the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And the good news is, listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your post the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. David, well, we have made the argument for the interior of the offensive line, and when it's been as bad as the Chargers had the last couple of years, it's easy to do that. But there might be more options available for the Chargers on the defensive line here. And I do think when you're talking about a defensive line that kind of like the offensive line hasn't had a ton of resources poured into it, right? Their best players have been bounce back candidates like a Teair Tart, like a Poona Ford. And every year under Jim Harbaugh, that group has overachieved. And so I do think there is something to like, hey, you might be able to take a second round guard that can start for you right away. Like there is a chance you can do that. And there, once you get to the second round, maybe there's some more guards that are actually worth taking more at that spot. What happens if you give Mike Elston a first round pick defensive tackle? Because we've seen him work miracles with some guys that probably, are kind of lingering around the league. Imagine what he could do with some premium talent.
Yeah, my goodness, that would be a sight to see because he has done a absolutely phenomenal job of getting the most out of the defensive line that he has had the last couple of years. And as far as defensive tackle in the first round, the Chargers haven't really prioritized it very much. I think the last time that we saw it was 2019 with the guy, I don't even want to mention his name, Jerry Tillery.
He who shall not be named.
Obviously, that didn't work out very well. I mean, the thing he's most famous for is trying to hit Justin Herbert late after the play and getting beat up by the Chargers football team after that. That's the only thing he was. And then before that, you got to go way back to 2011 with Corey Liuget. And Corey Liuget was pretty decent. You know, I think that was the last time that the Chargers actually got any kind of quality play out of a defensive tackle that they drafted highly. They've actually done better recently getting guys in the middle to late rounds to get, you know, some meaningful contributions from. 2022, they got Tito Obonya, who has played a lot of snaps for them the last couple of seasons. 2024, Justin Herbert obviously had a breakout year in his second year after basically redshirting his first year. And then Jamari Caldwell, they just recently got in the third round, was one of the better run stoppers in the league right away as a third round pick. He was very, very good. But it would be awesome to see the Chargers go out there and get a real difference maker to pair with their already established difference maker that they have, that they just rewarded with a new contract in Teair Tart. You get him partnered up with another guy who is just as disruptive or even more so, and guy maybe that has a little bit more of a pass rush upside to go along with, just having that major interior presence. Then you could have a defensive line that's already good and elevate them to great.
Yeah, and I think that's like what the exciting part of it is. And like, let me just share this little tidbit here that maybe kind of moves the needle for you one way or another. Because when you're going into last year, they always on ESPN put out the list of the top 10 players at their position based on what is said by the anonymous NFL executives and players and coaches around the league, right? So on that top 10 list was a lot of names that everybody's seen before, right? It's the Leonard Williams, it's the Quinnen Williams of the world, right? It's all those guys that everyone expects to be up there. Out of the 10 players that made it last year, 8 of those guys, the Jeffrey Simmons of the world, were drafted in the first round, right? Like, that's not a lot of variance there. I mean, it's the guys who were drafted very early that are the ones that are really good as far as defensive tackles. You're also talking about guys like a Jalen Carter, right? There are some outliers like a Chris Jones that gets drafted a little bit later, and a Nnamdi Madubuike, who's on the Ravens, who I believe is a third-round pick. Those were the only second and third-round picks on that list. There wasn't even a single day 3 pick on that list, right? So, like, when you're talking about the top of the league, and especially the guys, because 2 of the guys on that list, Leonard Williams, right, and Jalen Carter, were on the 2 Super Bowl winning teams last year, or the last 2 years. It's like, man, what if the Chargers do just build a monster up front? Because I don't think there's any kind of, I don't think it's coincidence, David, that these teams with these loaded defensive lines are the ones that are ended up battering Patrick Mahomes and Drake May in these Super Bowls.
Definitely not. I mean, when you have a good pass rush, and I think with the Chargers, with their pass rush, the way it's manifested has been almost exclusively on the edge. Guys that can, just really get after it and make tackles look bad, push them back into the quarterback, run around them. They've had that. But they haven't had a guy that's been able to push the pocket from the interior in a very, very long time. I mean, to me, it's Jamal Williams was the last guy that they really had that was a true monster, like a guy that you really had to account for every single time you step foot on the football field. The Chargers haven't had that in a long, long time. So to get that, to be able to have that, then you really have difference makers at every level of your defense. Because I think you like what you see when you look around the Chargers defense. There's a lot of really, really good football players up and down, but mostly on the back end. If you get more on the interior, then I think you could turn a really, really good defense that has been top 10 into one of those elite units. And hey, when you got those type of defensive lines, they show up in the playoffs. They show up when it matters, when you're trying to close out games, when you're trying to get these super uber athletic quarterbacks on the ground. You got to have the monsters to be able to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, the other Super Bowl team that lost, right, had Christian Barmore and Milton Williams, who was their prize free agent acquisition. I think my biggest thing about taking a Chargers for the Chargers taking a defensive tackle on round one is it feels like, there's 3 in the top 34 according to PFF, right? Daniel Jeremiah has 3 in his top 34. PFF has 5 in the top 30, so it depends who you ask. But not a lot of them seem like pass rush specialists, where the Chargers have Jamari Caldwell. They have Teair Tart. I want someone maybe a little bit more disruptive that might be able to bump the numbers up and help those edge rushers on the outside be more productive by taking away that pocket for a quarterback to step up in. But that's going to be it for this bonus episode. We're going to get to these as many as possible until we make our way to doing these 5 days a week because of the everydayers out there. So make sure you're back bright and early for the morning next show, because we still will have a full show for you guys tomorrow morning, and we'll put one out later in the afternoon or evening to give you guys a little bit extra. But this is just the start of it. Make sure you're following, subscribing for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listening wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding us on all of our social media so you don't miss these bonus shows either at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. But hey, thanks for checking us out for the second time today. Your first and second listen now. But until tomorrow, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.